Wait, did she just give away her worst horse? Everyone at the stable thought Margaret Hartwell had lost her mind. This wealthy horse breeder had just handed the keys to her most problematic stallion to a poor girl who'd never even ridden before. But what happened 3 months later? It brought the entire town to tears. Stay with me, because this story will completely change how you see second chances. If this story grabs your attention, hit the like and subscribe button for more. Our story begins on a misty autumn morning at Hartwell Manor, one of the most prestigious horse breeding estates in the countryside. Margaret Hartwell, a 58-year-old woman with silver hair always tied in an elegant bun, stood by her stable's window, her weathered hands clutching a cup of tea. Her estate was worth millions, but today, her sharp blue eyes held nothing but worry. You see, Margaret had a problem. And that problem had a name: Thunder. Thunder was a magnificent black stallion with a white star on his forehead. He should have been Margaret's pride and joy, strong, powerful, with a coat that gleamed like polished ebony. But Thunder was wild, unpredictable, dangerous, some said. He'd thrown off 7 experienced riders in the past year. Margaret's stable hands whispered that the horse was cursed. Her business partners urged her to sell him to a rodeo or worse. But Margaret, despite her tough exterior, couldn't bring herself to give up on him. Not yet. That same morning, 15 miles away in the poor district of town, 17-year-old Emma Collins was starting her day very differently. Emma lived in a small, weathered cottage with peeling yellow paint and a sagging porch. She had long chestnut-brown hair that she kept in a simple ponytail, warm hazel eyes that sparkled with determination, and freckles scattered across her nose and cheeks. Despite wearing faded jeans and an oversized flannel shirt, hand-me-downs from the local charity, Emma carried herself with quiet dignity. She was heading out for another day of odd jobs, trying to help her sick mother pay the rent. Emma worked 3 part-time jobs: cleaning houses in the morning, helping at the local diner for lunch, and doing yard work in the evenings. But it was never enough. Her mother, Sarah, had been bedridden for months with a chronic illness, and the medical bills were crushing them. Emma's father had left when she was 5, and she'd learned early that life wasn't fair. But she'd also learned something else: that kindness costs nothing, and hope is sometimes all you have. Today, that hope would lead her somewhere unexpected. Emma's afternoon cleaning job happened to be at a house near Hartwell Manor. As she was leaving, taking a shortcut through the country road, she heard something that made her stop dead in her tracks. The sound of a horse in distress. Emma had never owned a horse, never even been close to one, but something in that sound called to her. She followed it to a fence overlooking Margaret's property, and there she saw him, Thunder, rearing up in his paddock, wild and magnificent, while stable hands tried desperately to calm him. Emma stood frozen at the fence, her fingers gripping the weathered wood. Thunder's eyes met hers, dark, fierce, filled with something that looked like pain rather than anger. And in that moment, Emma understood something no one else had seen. This horse wasn't mean. He was scared, traumatized, acting out because he'd been hurt and didn't trust anyone. Emma knew that feeling all too well. Without thinking, she began humming softly, a lullaby her mother used to sing to her when she had nightmares. It was an old folk melody, gentle and soothing. Something incredible happened. Thunder's ears perked up. His wild movements slowed. He turned his massive head toward Emma, nostrils flaring as he tried to place this new presence. The stable hands noticed and stopped their attempts to control him, shocked into silence. For the first time in months, Thunder was standing still, listening. Margaret, who had been watching from her office window, grabbed her coat and hurried outside. She had to see who had managed to calm her impossible horse. Margaret approached the fence where Emma stood, her expensive riding boots crunching on the gravel path. Up close, Margaret was an imposing figure, tall, with high cheekbones, a prominent nose, and a stern expression that came from years of running a business in a male-dominated industry. She wore tailored riding pants, a cream cashmere sweater, and a barber jacket that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. But when she spoke, her voice was curious rather than harsh. Who are you, child? And how did you do that? Emma stammered an introduction, her cheeks flushing red with embarrassment. She explained she was just passing by, that she hadn't meant to trespass. But Margaret wasn't angry. She was intrigued. For the next 20 minutes, they stood by that fence as Emma, without even realizing what she was doing, kept Thunder calm simply by being present. Margaret asked questions. Where did Emma live? What did she do? Had she ever worked with horses? The answers painted a picture of a girl who had nothing but gave everything, who had every reason to be bitter but chose kindness instead. That evening, Margaret couldn't stop thinking about Emma and Thunder. She paced her study, a grand room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, and walls covered in equestrian awards and family portraits. Margaret's late husband smiled at her from a silver frame on her mahogany desk. He'd always said, "Maggie, sometimes the impossible just needs a different approach." She made a decision that her business manager would call insane. She picked up her phone and tracked down Emma's address through the house she'd been cleaning. Tomorrow, she would make the girl an offer. The next morning, Emma opened her cottage door to find Margaret Hartwell standing on her rickety porch, looking completely out of place in her expensive clothes against the backdrop of their humble neighborhood. Margaret got straight to the point. "I want you to take Thunder." Emma thought she'd misheard. "Take him where?" "To the vet." "No, dear," Margaret clarified, a slight smile breaking her stern expression. "I want to give him to you. He's yours if you want him." Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish. This had to be some kind of joke. But Margaret was dead serious. She explained that Thunder needed someone who understood him, someone patient and genuine. She'd provide feed, veterinary care, and boarding at her stable for 1 year. All Emma had to do was work with Thunder, spend time with him, help him heal. There was no catch, no hidden agenda. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She'd never owned anything valuable in her life. Never had anyone believe in her like this. Her mother, listening from her bedroom, called out weakly, "Take it, Emma. Take the chance." So Emma, her voice shaking, said yes. The first day Emma officially met Thunder in his stall was terrifying. Up close, he was enormous, 16 hands high, all muscle and power. His black coat rippled as he shifted his weight, eyeing Emma with suspicion. She stood in the stable doorway, wearing borrowed riding boots that were 2 sizes too big and a helmet Margaret had insisted on. Her hands trembled as she held out an apple. Thunder snorted, stamped his hoof. The stable hands watched from a safe distance, some placing bets on how long before the girl ran away crying. But Emma didn't run. Emma spent that entire first week just sitting in Thunder's stall, never touching him, just being present. She'd talk to him about her day, her worries, her dreams. She told him about her mother's illness, about how scared she was of losing her, about how sometimes she felt invisible to the world. Thunder would stand in the corner, but his ears would swivel toward her voice. By day 5, he'd moved closer. By day 7, he was eating carrots from her hand. The stable hands stopped placing bets and started watching in amazement. Margaret observed from a distance, her heart swelling with an emotion she hadn't felt in years. Hope. She began spending more time at the stable, ostensibly to check on her investment, but really to watch Emma and Thunder's progress. She saw herself in Emma, not the wealthy, successful version, but the young girl she'd once been, fighting for every opportunity in a world that had tried to keep her down. Margaret had grown up poor too, had married into wealth and built her empire through grit and determination. But somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten what really mattered. Week 3 brought the first major breakthrough. Emma had been grooming Thunder, running a soft brush over his coat while humming her lullaby, when Thunder did something unexpected. He turned his head and gently nuzzled her shoulder. It was the first truly affectionate gesture he'd made toward any human in over a year. Emma froze, tears streaming down her freckled cheeks, her hand moving to stroke his muzzle. "I see you, boy," she whispered. "I see you, and you're not broken. You're just hurt. And that's okay." We'll heal together. But not everyone was happy about Emma's presence. Margaret's business manager, Richard Thornton, a portly man in his 50s with slicked-back gray hair, cold gray eyes, and an expensive suit that strained at his belly, was furious. He cornered Margaret in her office, his face red with anger. Thunder was worthless now, given away for free. The estate was paying for his care with no return on investment. Emma was a liability, a poor girl with no training who'd probably get herself killed. Margaret should send her away and sell Thunder before he hurt someone. The community was already talking, questioning Margaret's judgment. For the first time in 30 years, Margaret Hartwell told her business manager exactly where he could shove his advice. "Richard," she said, her blue eyes flashing with ice-cold fury, "I built this estate from nothing. I made my fortune by trusting my instincts, not spreadsheets. That girl has something money can't buy. She has heart. And she's teaching me to remember mine. If you can't support that, you know where the door is." Richard stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the equestrian trophies on the walls. Margaret smiled. She hadn't felt this alive in years. By week 6, Emma had Thunder walking on a lead, responding to basic commands, and even allowing her to clean his hooves, something that previously required 3 people and sedation. But the real test came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Emma's mother took a turn for the worse and was rushed to the hospital. Emma got the call while at the stable and collapsed against Thunder's stall door, sobbing uncontrollably. She couldn't lose her mother. She couldn't. Thunder did something that left every witness speechless. He knelt down beside her, lowering his massive body, and rested his head in her lap. Margaret, who had rushed to the stable when she heard Emma's cries, stood frozen in the doorway. She'd seen many things in her decades with horses, but she'd never seen anything like this. This wasn't training. This wasn't technique. This was pure, unconditional love between 2 broken souls who'd found each other. Margaret made a phone call right then and there. She had resources, connections, and a personal relationship with one of the best specialists in the country. Within hours, her mother Sarah was being transferred to a private hospital room with a team of doctors reviewing her case, all expenses paid by Margaret Hartwell. Emma tried to refuse. She couldn't accept such generosity, couldn't possibly pay it back. But Margaret took the girl's dirt-stained, trembling hands in her own manicured ones and said something that changed everything. "Emma, when I was 17, I was you. Poor, desperate, trying to save my dying father with nothing but willpower. No one helped me. I lost him, and I promised myself that if I ever had the means, I'd be the person I needed back then. Let me be that person now. Not for payback. For paying forward." Emma crumpled into the older woman's arms, and they stood there crying together. A poor girl and a rich woman, both just humans who understood loss. The next 2 months were transformative for everyone involved. Emma's mother began responding to treatment, her color returning, her strength growing. Emma spent her mornings at the hospital and her afternoons with Thunder, who had become so gentle that children from the local riding school could pet him. Margaret began spending less time in her office and more time teaching Emma about horses, business, and life. She discovered that mentoring this young girl filled a void she didn't know existed. Emma wasn't just learning about horses, she was learning to believe in herself, to take up space, to dream bigger. Thunder's transformation became legendary in the equestrian community. People who'd heard about the cursed stallion started showing up at Hartwell Manor to see the miracle horse and his unlikely handler. Emma, the shy girl who once felt invisible, found herself demonstrating Thunder's training techniques to experienced riders. She'd stand in the center of the riding arena, her confidence growing with each session, explaining in her soft but steady voice, "You can't break a horse's spirit and expect trust. You have to heal the hurt first. You have to see them as they are, not what you want them to be." Then came the invitation that no one expected. The Regional Equestrian Exhibition, the most prestigious event in the state, invited Emma and Thunder to perform an exhibition showcase. Margaret was thrilled, but Emma was terrified. She'd never performed in front of crowds. She'd never even formally ridden Thunder beyond the basics. But Margaret saw this for what it was, a chance for Emma to show the world what compassion and patience could achieve. "You've already done the impossible," Margaret told her. "Now let everyone else see it." Thunder, as if understanding the importance, nuzzled Emma's cheek. Together, they decided to accept. The day of the exhibition was crisp and bright, with autumn leaves swirling across the massive showgrounds. Emma stood behind the arena gates, wearing a beautiful riding outfit that Margaret had purchased for her. Black riding pants, polished boots, a tailored show jacket in deep navy blue, and her chestnut hair braided elegantly down her back. She looked like she belonged in this world now, but her hands still shook as she adjusted Thunder's bridle. Her mother, now well enough to attend, sat in the front row with Margaret, both women clutching each other's hands with nervous anticipation. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emma Collins and Thunder, performing a Liberty demonstration, a showcase of trust without restraints." Emma led Thunder into the vast arena, then removed his halter completely. The crowd gasped. Liberty work, guiding a horse without any equipment, required years of trust and training. Emma stood in the center, took a deep breath, and began. She moved, and Thunder moved with her as if they were dancing. She raised her arm, and he reared beautifully. She walked backward, and he followed. No commands, no equipment, just connection. Then Emma did something that wasn't in any plan. She knelt down in the center of the arena, arms spread wide, making herself completely vulnerable. The crowd held its collective breath. Thunder, this massive stallion who'd once been called dangerous and untrainable, walked slowly to her, lowered his head, and rested it gently against her chest in a gesture of pure trust and love. The arena erupted. People rose to their feet, applauding, many openly crying. Emma wrapped her arms around Thunder's neck, tears streaming down her face, whispering, "We did it, boy. We showed them what healing looks like." The aftermath of that performance changed everything. Emma and Thunder became minor celebrities in equestrian circles. Training facilities wanted to hire Emma as a consultant for problem horses. Magazines wanted to feature their story. But the biggest change came from an unexpected place. Richard Thornton, Margaret's skeptical business manager, showed up at the stable with a formal apology and a business proposal. He wanted to invest in creating a special program at Hartwell Manor, a therapeutic riding center where troubled horses and troubled kids could heal together, with Emma as the director. Margaret smiled knowingly. Sometimes being proven wrong is the best feeling in the world. 6 months after that rainy day when Margaret first approached Emma's cottage, Hartwell Manor celebrated the grand opening of Thunder's Hope, a therapeutic riding program that would change countless lives. The event was beautiful. White tents, catered food, reporters, and dignitaries. But the most important guests were the 10 kids from difficult backgrounds who would be the program's first participants, each paired with a rescue horse that needed a second chance. Emma, now 18 and glowing with purpose, stood at the microphone in a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders, and told their story. "A year ago, I was invisible," Emma said, her voice strong and clear, carrying across the crowd. "I was just a poor girl trying to survive, thinking I had nothing to offer the world. Then a rich woman gave me her worst horse, and everything changed. Not because of the horse, but because someone saw me. Really saw me. Margaret didn't give me Thunder because she was giving up on him. She gave him to me because she believed in both of us. She saw potential where everyone else saw problems. And that belief, that changed everything." Margaret wiped tears from her eyes, her stern facade finally crumbling to reveal the soft heart beneath. Emma continued, "Thunder wasn't a bad horse. He was a hurt horse. And I wasn't a nobody. I was just someone who hadn't been given a chance yet. This program exists because we believe every living being deserves that chance, horses and humans alike. We believe that broken isn't the same as worthless. We believe that with patience, compassion, and trust, healing is possible. Thunder taught me that. Margaret showed me that. And now, together, we're going to help others discover it too. The crowd erupted in applause, but Emma was looking at Thunder, who stood in his decorated stall, watching his girl with those dark, trusting eyes. The program's first year exceeded every expectation. Kids who'd been labeled difficult found purpose and peace with horses who'd been labeled the same. Emma proved to be a natural leader and teacher, her empathy and patience inspiring her students. Margaret, who'd been considering retirement, found new meaning in her work, spending hours mentoring Emma in business management so the program would last generations. Thunder became a therapy horse, gentle enough for beginners but majestic enough to inspire awe. He seemed to understand that his job now was to heal others, just as Emma had healed him. But the most beautiful transformation was the relationship between Margaret and Emma. It had evolved from benefactor and recipient into something deeper: family. Margaret, who had no children of her own, found in Emma the daughter she'd never had. Emma found in Margaret the mentor, champion, and mother figure she desperately needed. They'd have dinner together twice a week, sometimes at the Manor's grand dining room, sometimes at Emma's cottage where Sarah would cook simple, delicious meals. Class differences melted away, replaced by genuine love and mutual respect. They'd saved each other just as much as Emma and Thunder had saved each other. Emma's mother, Sarah, made a full recovery, something the doctors attributed partly to the reduction in stress once Margaret had taken care of the medical bills and Emma had secure income from directing the program. Sarah visited the stable often, watching her daughter work with a pride that glowed from her like sunshine. She'd tell anyone who'd listen, "My Emma always had a gift for seeing the good in broken things. I'm just glad the world finally noticed." The Collins cottage got a new roof, fresh paint, and a flowering garden, all funded by Thunder's Hope program revenues. They were no longer just surviving, they were thriving. 2 years after their first meeting, on a spring morning filled with bird songs and possibility, Emma received a letter that would change her life again. It was an acceptance letter from a prestigious veterinary program with a full scholarship, arranged by Margaret through her network, though she'd never admit it. Emma could pursue her dream of becoming an equine veterinarian while continuing to direct Thunder's Hope. She ran to the stable, waving the letter, laughing and crying at once. Thunder whinnied as if sharing her joy. Margaret emerged from the office with a knowing smile. "So, Dr. Collins has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" The local newspaper did a feature on Thunder's Hope's second anniversary, titled "The Horse That Healed a Community." It documented how the program had expanded, how property values in Emma's once-neglected neighborhood had risen, how local businesses were thriving from the visitors the program attracted, and how at-risk youth crime rates had dropped significantly since the program's inception. The article quoted town council members, psychologists, and parents whose children had been transformed. But the most powerful quotes came from the kids themselves. "Thunder taught me I'm not broken, just healing," wrote a 13-year-old boy named Marcus. "Emma showed me that my past doesn't define my future." On the program's third anniversary, Margaret made an announcement that shocked everyone, including Emma. She was placing Thunder's Hope, along with a significant portion of Hartwell Manor's property, into a charitable trust, with Emma as co-director alongside her. Emma would inherit the full program when Margaret passed, ensuring it would continue for generations. But more than that, Margaret was officially adopting Emma as her legal daughter and heir. Standing before lawyers, staff, and program participants, Margaret said simply, "Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Emma is my daughter in every way that matters. Thunder brought her to me, and I'll be grateful to that stubborn horse for the rest of my life." Emma, now 20 years old, mature beyond her years but still with those same freckles and warm hazel eyes, stood beside her new mother with tears streaming down her face. "3 years ago, I had nothing but hope," she said to the gathered crowd. "I was cleaning houses, counting pennies, and wondering if tomorrow would be better than today. Then a wealthy woman gave me a horse everyone had given up on. She didn't just change my life, she taught me how to change others' lives. She showed me that wealth isn't about money. It's about what you give away. It's about seeing potential in broken things and having the courage to believe in them." Thunder, now 8 years old and in his prime, stood in the ceremony's place of honor, his black coat gleaming, his white star prominent against his noble head. He wore a garland of flowers and looked every bit the hero he'd become. Children from the program decorated his stall with handmade cards. "Thank you, Thunder, for teaching me to be brave. You're not the worst horse. You're the best. I want to be like you, strong and kind." Emma walked over to him, pressed her forehead against his, and whispered words only he could hear. He nickered softly, a sound of contentment and love that needed no translation. So what happened when a rich woman gave her worst horse to a poor girl? Magic happened. Not the fairy tale kind, but something better. The kind that comes from compassion, second chances, and the revolutionary act of believing in someone everyone else has overlooked. Thunder wasn't the worst horse. He was the best teacher. Emma wasn't just a poor girl. She was a healer waiting for her chance. And Margaret, she wasn't just wealthy. She was wise enough to know that true legacy isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives changed, hope restored, and love multiplied. Sometimes, the worst horse carries the greatest blessing. And sometimes, the broken ones are just waiting for someone to see them whole. If you have watched to this long, like and subscribe for more relatable videos. 2 years after their first meeting, on a spring morning filled with bird songs and possibility, Emma received a letter that would change her life again. It was an acceptance letter from a prestigious veterinary program with a full scholarship, arranged by Margaret through her network, though she'd never admit it. Emma could pursue her dream of becoming an equine veterinarian while continuing to direct Thunder's hope. She ran to the stable, waving the letter, laughing and crying at once. Thunder whinnied as if sharing her joy. Margaret emerged from the office with a knowing smile. "So, Dr. Collins has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" The local newspaper did a feature on Thunder's Hope's second anniversary, titled "The Horse That Healed a Community." It documented how the program had expanded, how property values in Emma's once-neglected neighborhood had risen, how local businesses were thriving from the visitors the program attracted, and how at-risk youth crime rates had dropped significantly since the program's inception. The article quoted town council members, psychologists, and parents whose children had been transformed. But the most powerful quotes came from the kids themselves. "Thunder taught me I'm not broken, just healing," wrote a 13-year-old boy named Marcus. "Emma showed me that my past doesn't define my future." On the program's third anniversary, Margaret made an announcement that shocked everyone, including Emma. She was placing Thunder's Hope, along with a significant portion of Hartwell Manor's property, into a charitable trust, with Emma as co-director alongside her. Emma would inherit the full program when Margaret passed, ensuring it would continue for generations. But more than that, Margaret was officially adopting Emma as her legal daughter and heir. Standing before lawyers, staff, and program participants, Margaret said simply, "Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Emma is my daughter in every way that matters. Thunder brought her to me, and I'll be grateful to that stubborn horse for the rest of my life." Emma, now 20 years old, mature beyond her years but still with those same freckles and warm hazel eyes, stood beside her new mother with tears streaming down her face. "3 years ago, I had nothing but hope," she said to the gathered crowd. "I was cleaning houses, counting pennies, and wondering if tomorrow would be better than today. Then a wealthy woman gave me a horse everyone had given up on. She didn't just change my life. She taught me how to change others' lives. She showed me that wealth isn't about money. It's about what you give away. It's about seeing potential in broken things and having the courage to believe in them." Thunder, now 8 years old and in his prime, stood in the ceremony's place of honor, his black coat gleaming, his white star prominent against his noble head. He wore a garland of flowers and looked every bit the hero he'd become. Children from the program decorated his stall with handmade cards. "Thank you, Thunder, for teaching me to be brave. You're not the worst horse. You're the best. I want to be like you, strong and kind." Emma walked over to him, pressed her forehead against his, and whispered words only he could hear. He nickered softly, a sound of contentment and love that needed no translation. So what happened when a rich woman gave her worst horse to a poor girl? Magic happened. Not the fairy tale kind, but something better. The kind that comes from compassion, second chances, and the revolutionary act of believing in someone everyone else has overlooked. Thunder wasn't the worst horse. He was the best teacher. Emma wasn't just a poor girl. She was a healer waiting for her chance. And Margaret, she wasn't just wealthy. She was wise enough to know that true legacy isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives changed, hope restored, and love multiplied. Sometimes, the worst horse carries the greatest blessing. And sometimes, the broken ones are just waiting for someone to see them whole. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more relatable videos.